Unlawful interference. 1. Communication. Notify the appropriate ATS unit of the situation and any deviations, if possible. If unable, attempt to broadcast on VHF frequency and other channels. 2. Transponder. Set code 7500 to indicate unlawful interference. If ATC requests confirmation, either confirm or do not reply. Silence is treated as confirmation. Use 7700 if the emergency situation requires. 3. Flight path, procedures. Continue on the assigned route and cruising level as cleared by ATC, if possible. If forced to deviate from assigned route, level and unable to communicate, attempt to broadcast warnings on emergency frequency. Follow ICAO DOC 7030 regional contingency procedures, if applicable. If no regional procedures, fly at a level different from normal cruising level to ensure vertical separation. 500 feet offset where 1000 feet separation applies RVSM. 1000 feet offset where 2000 feet separation applies non-RVSM. Lost communication. Aircraft must maintain continuous air-ground voice communication. Watch and try to establish two-way communication with ATC. SELCAL or similar systems satisfy the listening requirement. 1. Communication failure procedures. If unable to comply with the general rule above, the aircraft must follow these steps. If in VMC, continue flight in VMC. Land at the nearest suitable aerodrome. Report arrival as soon as possible to ATC. If in IMC or unable to continue VMC. In non-radar area, maintain the last assigned speed and level, or minimum flight altitude if higher, for 20 minutes after failing to report at a compulsory reporting point or after the last assigned time, then adjust flight according to the flight plan. In radar-controlled area, maintain last assigned level, speed for 7 minutes after last assigned level, time is reached. Transponder set to 7600 or failure to report position over compulsory reporting point. Then proceed according to the flight plan. If cleared direct or offset via RNAV without specific limit, rejoin the flight plan route no later than the next significant point, considering the minimum flight altitude. Continue flight. Continue along the current flight plan route to the designated navigation aid or fix for the destination aerodrome. Hold if needed, until the expected descent time. Commence descent. Begin descent at, or as close as possible to, expected approach time last received and acknowledged, or, if none received, at estimated time of arrival per flight plan. Instrument approach. Complete a normal instrument approach as specified for the navigation aid. Landing. Land if possible within 30 minutes after the ETA or the last acknowledged expected approach time, whichever is later. 2. Air-ground communications failure. If unable to contact ATC, try other frequencies and nearby aircraft. If still unsuccessful, transmit blind with transmitting blind on both primary and secondary frequencies, including the intended message and addressee. 3. Receiver failure. Transmit reports on the frequency in use preceded by transmitting blind due to receiver failure. Advise the time of the next transmission. Continue transmitting position, intention information. Select appropriate SSR code to indicate radio failure if equipped. In-flight fuel management. Minimum fuel. Declare minimum fuel when, after committing to land at a specific aerodrome, because any change to the existing clearance could result in landing with less than the planned final reserve fuel. This is not an emergency, but it alerts ATC that no further delays can be accepted without compromising final reserve fuel. All alternate options have been reduced to the intended aerodrome. Phraseology. Pilot. Call sign minimum fuel. ATC. Roger, no delay expected or expect delay information. Fuel emergency. If it becomes clear that the aircraft will land with less than final reserve fuel, declare a fuel emergency. Phraseology. Pilot. Mayday, mayday, mayday fuel. ATC. Mayday fuel, roger. Purpose. This is an emergency. The aircraft will receive priority handling over other traffic. ATC will commit the aircraft to land because there may not be enough fuel for holding or a go-around. Radiotelephony distress communications. 1. Action by the aircraft in distress. Begin with the distress signal, Mayday, preferably spoken 3 times. Use the air-ground frequency currently in use. Include the following information, clearly and in order if possible. Name of the station addressed with time if needed. Aircraft identification. Nature of the distress. Intention of the pilot in command. Present position, flight level, altitude, etc. And heading. May also transmit on 121.5 MHz, maritime calling frequencies, or use all available means SSR, visual signals, etc. to draw attention. The message should be repeated if necessary, and frequency changes should be announced. 2. Action by the station addressed or first to acknowledge. Immediately acknowledge the distress message. Take control of communications or clearly transfer it to the responsible station. Inform ATS and the aircraft operating agency quickly with all necessary information. Warn other stations to keep the frequency clear. 3. Imposition of silence. The aircraft in distress or the controlling station can impose silence on interfering stations by saying, "Stop transmitting," or using "Mayday." Only the aircraft in distress or the controlling station may use these signals. 4. Action by other stations. Distress traffic has absolute priority over all other communications. Other stations must not transmit on the frequency unless a. The distress is cancelled or ended. b. The distress traffic has moved to other frequencies. c. The controlling station gives permission. d. They are directly assisting. Stations aware of the distress must keep listening until it's clear the aircraft is being helped. 5. Termination of distress communications. When the aircraft is no longer in distress, it must transmit a message cancelling the distress condition. The controlling station, once aware that distress has ended, must inform ATS and the operating agency. Termination is done by transmitting "Distress traffic ended" on the frequency used. Only the controlling station or the appropriate authority may make this call. Interception. 1. General. Interception here refers to actions taken when intercepting a civil aircraft, not escort services requested by a distressed aircraft. Those are covered under SAR procedures. 2. Action by intercepted aircraft. When intercepted, the aircraft must follow instructions from the intercepting aircraft and respond to visual signals as per para 7.4. Notify ATC as soon as possible. Try to establish radio communication with the intercepting aircraft or the appropriate intercept control unit. First on 121.5 MHz emergency frequency, giving aircraft identity and flight details. If no contact, repeat on 243.0 MHz if possible. Set transponder to Mode A, code 7700, unless instructed otherwise by ATC. If equipped with ADS B, ADS C, select the appropriate emergency function if available. Note: if radio instructions conflict with visual signals from the intercepting aircraft, the intercepted aircraft must clarify immediately but continue to comply with visual instructions. If there's conflict between multiple radio sources, comply with the intercepting aircraft's radio instructions. 3. Radio communication during interception. If contact is established but there's no common language, communication must rely on standard ICAO interception phraseologies with each phrase spoken twice for clarity. These cover basic instructions, acknowledgements, and essential information. 4. Signals by intercepting aircraft and responses. When intercepting aircraft, rock wings and flashing navigation lights, which means, you have been intercepted. Follow me. The intercepted aircraft will rocking wings and flashing lights, which means, understood, will comply. When intercepting aircraft, abrupt breakaway climbing turn more than 90 degrees, which means, you may proceed. The intercepted aircraft will rock the aircraft, which means, understood, will comply. When intercepting aircraft, lower landing gear and overfly the runway and turn on steady landing lights, which means, land at this aerodrome. The intercepted aircraft will comply by lowering gear, steady landing lights, follow and land. 5. Signals by intercepted aircraft responses. When intercepted aircraft raise landing gear, flash landing lights when overflying runway, which means, aerodrome you designated as inadequate. If there is alternate aerodrome, intercepting aircraft will raise the landing gear and rock wings and flashing navigation lights, to lead to the alternate aerodrome. If decide to release the intercepted aircraft, abrupt breakaway climbing turn more than 90 degrees, which means understood. You may proceed. When intercepted aircraft switch regular on and off of all lights to be distinct from flashing light, meaning cannot comply. The intercepting aircraft will abrupt breakaway climbing turn more than 90 degrees, which means understood. When intercepted aircraft irregular flashing of all lights, which means in distress. The intercepting aircraft will abrupt breakaway climbing turn more than 90 degrees, which means understood. Weather deviation procedures. Oceanic controlled airspace. When weather requires deviation and prior ATC clearance cannot be obtained, the pilot must follow specific procedures to maintain safety and coordination. ATC assistance should be obtained as soon as possible. 1. Obtaining priority from ATC. When initiating contact with ATC, say, weather deviation required, to get priority on frequency. Alternatively, use PAN-PAN, preferably repeated 3 times to indicate urgency and request priority handling. 2. If pilot-controller communications are established, inform ATC and request a deviation clearance, including the extent of deviation expected if possible. Follow ATC clearance as issued. 3. If revised ATC clearance cannot be obtained. If communication or clearance is not possible, and deviation is required to avoid weather, the pilot must deviate away from organized track or route systems if possible. Broadcast intentions. Make regular broadcasts with the frequency in use and also 121.5 or 123.45 as backup, regarding aircraft ID, flight level, position including ATS route designator, deviation intentions including expected distance. Monitor visually and via ACAS for conflicting traffic. Adjust flight path as necessary to avoid conflicts. Turn on all exterior lights within operating limits. For deviations less than 10 nautical miles, maintain assigned level. For deviations more than 10 nautical miles, when 10 nautical miles off track, initiate a level change as per published offset level tables. When returning to track, be at the assigned flight level when within 10 nautical miles of track. Keep trying to contact ATC for clearance. If contact was already established before deviating, continue to update ATC with intentions and receive essential traffic information. After deviation, inform ATC when weather deviation is no longer required or when deviation has been completed. Published offset level tables. When the route track is east from 0 to 179 degree magnetic, if deviate to the left, descend 300 feet. If deviate to the right, climb 300 feet. When the route track is west from 180 to 359 degree magnetic, if deviate to the left, climb 300 feet. If deviate to the right, descend 300 feet.